Coming to you from Austin, Texas on this fairly sunny day, it's Color Commentary, and we are Adrian Gonzalez.
And Michael Petchik. So we got some recap to do, F&M.
Yeah, I went to the dark side, and I brought my Darth Vader playmat along just to showcase that. I played Drake and went 6-0 in games.
Do you feel good?
I am monetarily and materially richer, but I feel as though a small piece of my soul has gone somewhere that I cannot recover it.
Yeah. I played Goblins as like a last-minute, spur-of-the-moment decision, and deck's not great anymore. I don't know. It was better when more people played Control.
You know, I know we said we weren't going to talk about the D word too long, Drake, but like having actually played, I've never played the deck for a tournament before, and having played it, the deck is just absolutely busted. Like you don't do anything, and then you win the game in one turn, basically.
Yep.
Is how it plays. And it's just like, I don't know. It's when you're looking at the list, you're like, oh, this is actually pretty good. When you're playing it against real people, it's like soul crushing.
Yeah. I went, 1-2. We didn't have that many people. We usually get 4 rounds. We only had 6 people show up, which, you know, people are busy. School's starting up again. So,
I also blame the. There were 2 modern PPTQs this week in our area.
Were?
There's one going on right now, actually, and then there was one yesterday in San Antonio, I want to say.
Okay.
And my boy Taylor May, if you're listening, he borrowed my Affinity deck and he totally won that event. So now my Affinity deck in Modern
he
is
got
lucky. Yeah, he got it.
Nice.
So I now have a lucky Modern Affinity deck.
Also, another recap news, we streamed this Monday. It was Labor Day here in the States. Since I know a decent amount of our viewers are overseas, we had the day off. We hung out, we streamed it, and the VOD for that is available on our YouTube channel. If you want to check out like 3 hours, it's 4
hours.
It's 4?
Yeah.
You can probably skip like the first 20-30 minutes because we basically deck built, and apparently some people were not too pleased with that, but
I mean, whatever. I mean, it was like Mike has said before, people want to imagine we're professionals, and really no one should have let us buy microphones.
We're kind of always doing stuff by the seat of our pants, you know. We do the best we can, but we're not always 100%.
I don't have any regrets.
I neither do I. And I think the only thing else that we have to mention, kind of as like an upkeep trigger, so to say. We're going to be at GP Dallas.
Yes.
In November. You know the actual date. You take this.
It's the first weekend in November 4th and 5th. We'll be getting it on Thursday, playing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you are in the area, feel free to come hang out, join us. We'll have our popper decks on us for sure. I don't even think Mike is planning on playing in the main event. I plan on O2 dropping it in the main event. So we, hope to see you there. We'll have our business cards on us too if you want a little souvenir. And we would love to play some Popper IRL.
Yeah, if you show up with a Popper deck, I will probably be tooling around the side events. So if you see me, and don't worry, I stand out in a crowd. I'm a terrifying monster. And if you see me, at least stop by, say hi. We'll be there all weekend, so I'm probably going to bring my cube with me if there are people down to draft like a peasant cube in between rounds. My point is, we'll be there. We'll be having a good time. Come out if you're in the area. Say hi. I promise we're actually quite friendly. So we're going to move on to a deck that got sent into us, and we're going to do a deck tech for it.
And if you remember, last week we challenged you, the listeners, in an unforeseen and unheard of piece of audience interaction to submit us a list if you had a deck that featured Coiling Oracle, last week's maybe board card. And oh boy, did someone deliver.
So we got this email, and it had several words in it where I was like, all right, This is a coin flip because there's a lot of words in here that could go badly, but it looks absolutely sweet. This week, we are talking about our fan Austin Quinn's list for Bant Acid Trip. Now, Acid Trip is, a blue-white, quote-unquote, kitty deck that utilizes Reality Acid, which, for those who don't know, is an enchantment aura from Planar Chaos, I believe.
Yes.
2 and a blue. It has Vanishing 3, so after 3 turns it goes away. But the important thing is it enchants any permanent, and when it leaves the battlefield, not going to graveyard, just leaves the battlefield, enchanted permanent's controller sacrifices it. So the engine here is, you use Core Skyfisher style effects to bounce it and basically turn it into a 5-mana repeatable Vindicate. And it's usually blue-white. And this one splashes in green for some interesting inclusions.
Most notably of which is the Coiling Oracle.
Yep. So let's get into it. So our creature base, we're starting off with 3 Coiling Oracle. As we said from last time, it's a 1/1 for a green and a blue. When it enters the battlefield, you reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a land, it goes into play. If it's anything else, you draw it.
Yes.
Then we got 4 copies of Dreamstalker, 1 and a blue for a 1/5 that when it enters the battlefield, you have to return a creature from play to your hand, or a permanent, excuse me.
It's a permanent.
We've got 4 Core Skyfishers. It's a 1/2 flyer for 1 and white. Same text as the Dreamstalker.
It's a 2/3 flyer.
2/3. What did I say?
I think you said 1/2. Maybe I misheard you.
Oh, okay. I'm not perfect.
What?
We've got 1 copy of Lone Missionary, 1 and white for a 2/1. Jesus, I am bad with numbers today. A 2/1 that gains you 4 life. Then we got 2 copies of Aura Gnarlid, which is 2 and a green for a 2/2 that gets +1/+1 for each aura you control, and creatures with power less than Aura Gnarlids can't block it. This is usually kind of like a side finisher for Boggles.
And I would like to point out, Austin Quinn did say in the email that he sent us that the reason he's splashing green is to give the deck a little bit more reach, and I think Aura Gnarlid is a pretty big piece of that.
So if Aura Gnarlid can get to 6 power, a lot of the times it's just unblockable. Because even if you have something with a load of toughness, it cares about power. So it's kind of this weird state where, when it gets blocked, it usually dies. But if you can't block it, it's just going to beat you to death real quickly. We got 1 Heliod's Pilgrim, 2 and a white for a 1/2. When it enters the battlefield, you search your library for an aura, put it in your hand. As we will see, there's a great deal of interesting auras that can, be targets for this. It also kind of lets you run one-ofs. So, kind of like a aura-based teachings almost.
Yeah.
1 copy of Wickerbow Elder. It's a 4/4 for 3 and a green. Enters the battlefield with a -1/-1 counter on it. You can pay 1 green, remove a -1/-1 counter from it to destroy an artifact or enchantment. So
a favorite in the big trinket lists.
Well, interestingly enough, sometimes you want to let your reality acid die just because you're kind of done with it, and this does let you speed that up.
You just fling the counter at it.
Yeah, in response to them trying to bounce something, because sometimes you'll they'll snap their creature to get it back if they're really worried about it dying. In response, you can just blow up the reality acid, which obviously isn't great, but sometimes you'll get them. It's also just a 4/4. That's a pretty decent body in this format.
Yeah, it's a fairly good card.
Then 4 copies of Muldrifter. We know it. We love it. It draws you 2 cards.
Can we call Muldrifter the mascot of the format yet? It kind of is, right?
I would say it's not the mascot of the format. I would say it's the mascot of our format's mid-range decks, though.
I don't know. It's 4 of Drake, which is definitely not a mid-range deck.
Yes, but I think if you have islands in your deck and you're a mid-range deck, you play 4 Muldrifters. You don't you never really see 3 Muldrifters. It's always just I can play 1. I should play 4.
I need to get my other 3 promo copies of Muldrifter, perhaps at the GP.
The promo version of it is gorgeous.
Yeah, I only have 1.
I personally prefer the regular one because I think it's goofy.
I own 8 copies of Muldrifter, and only one of them is the promo one.
Oh, Muffin.
Oh, all right. Now we're getting into the... this is just spells, but most of them are enchantments.
Yeah.
We have 4 Abundant Growths, which is a G. You enchant a land, draw a card, and now fixes for any color. We have a 1 of Rancor, the G, +2/+0 trample, goes back to your hand. Are you doing something? All right, and then we have 3 Journey to Nowhere. Everyone's favorite white removal spell. 1 and a white, plops on the battlefield. Exile target creature until it gets removed. You also can totally kill your opponent's creature if you only have one, or kill your own creature in response to this. I don't know. I've done it in Pig Trinket, sacrificed a creature to get my opponent to journey their own creature. It's fun.
Yes, it must target.
There's 2 Momentary Blinks, which is 1 and a white to blink a creature, flashback of blue, I believe. Just you?
No. I believe it's 2 and a blue.
Okay.
I could be wrong about that. But continue.
4 copies of Spreading Seas, blue and a 1 for an aura that turns opponent's land into an island, and then you draw a card. A favorite of modern merfolk. And I actually don't know this one, Mike. What does Moldervine Cloak do?
Moldervine Cloak is 2 and a green for an aura that gives a creature +2/+2, but also has Dredge 3.
Oh.
So it's kind of a weird Rancor side upgrade. I don't know. I've seen it before in lists. It's one of those cards that definitely fits that role of like sweet, but not quite good enough to compete with Rancor. But no, it's a neat inclusion here.
We also have 2 copies of the titular Reality Acid for nuking stuff.
Which is a little low.
Yeah.
Usually these lists are 3 to 4 main board and usually have the full 4 across main and side.
Yeah, this deck might benefit from an inclusion of an Auramancer.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that as we go. But we got one more. What's the last thing?
Faith's Fetters, which is actually a cube favorite, because you enchant the permanent, you gain 4 life, and then it cannot use any activated abilities any longer.
Besides mana abilities.
Yep, correct.
Because you can throw this on a land if it has another ability. Super popular in cube because it shuts off planeswalkers.
Right.
But the 4 life is also not irrelevant in this deck. Sometimes you'll wind up bouncing this just to replay it on the same target, just to gain the 4 life.
Yeah, it's another great bounce target.
Land base is the only real interesting things I'm seeing here are 3 copies of Crumbling Vestige and 2 copies of Colony Garden. Colony Garden is probably a concession for mono black, lets you get out little dudes to soak up your edict effects, and Crumbling Vestige is there because you've already got the Skyfisher effects, and on top of that, you are a 3-color deck.
Yeah, I'm never sure how I feel about Crumbling Vestige. I think this deck can get away with it because, like you said, it has the bounce effects. But I think Crumbling Vestige is not high up on list of cards I would really want to play outside of maybe this kind of deck.
Yeah, we've definitely seen it in like the 5-color Boggles list where it seems a little bit more iffy than it does here.
I do have 3 Crumbling Vestige promos, though.
The promo is the one with like the rock in the ocean, right?
Yeah, I just, for all the fans out there who don't know, Adrian loves his promos.
I like some of the promos, like the upcoming Rise from the Tides, I think looks way better than the original. But it all comes down to, do I like the art more? Our sideboard, kind of what you'd expect. 2 copies of Dispel, 2 copies of Hydroblast, copy of Ication Javelineers, 2 Relic of Progenitus, Circle of Protection Red, another Journey to Nowhere, another Lone Missionary. Ray of Revelation is a little interesting.
I love Ray of Revelation. I play it in my Affinity sideboard. I think that card is vastly underrated.
So remind me again. I know what it does. I forget the mana costs on it.
It's Ancient Grudge in white for enchantments. It's the exact same. Otherwise, you pay.
So it's 1 and a white on the first time and
G on the second.
Okay, all right. That seems
sweet. It's not as good as Ancient Grudge, I guess, because artifacts tend to be better targets, but it's good against so many decks. It's good against Mono Black for Oubliette.
Yep.
It's good against this deck. Obviously, it's very good against this deck, actually, because you can blow up a lot of their enchantments. It's just a very strong card, and I think if you're in white and green, you should play it.
And then we got 2 copies of Standard Bearer, more hate for Boggles.
I think that's an amazing card as well.
Yeah, definitely one of those cards where when it's good, it's just amazing.
It's kind of a nombo in this deck, though, I would say, because it's sort of, if you have one out, it sort of shuts off your Reality Acid plan, which might be why there's only 2 of them in the decks, that you can bring these 2 Standard Bearers in against maybe matchups where you want them a little more. And also, I guess Reality Acid's pretty poor against Boggles anyway.
Yeah, although you can start hitting their lands with it, which can really hurt a deck that's kind of low on land and kind of has slightly strenuous mana requirements at times.
Right.
And then we got one copy of Wicker Elder in the side, just again to shore up your artifact and enchantment-based matchups. So I really like this list. Like, one of the big issues that Acid Trip has always had is you kind of are left to finish the game with 2/2s. There's not like a whole lot of finishing power in the blue-white lists.
Right.
And this brings in some very pertinent threats. Like, even just slapping a Rancor onto a Core Skyfisher,
4/3 flyer trample.
You're already doubling your clock. Like,
yeah,
that's pretty significant.
It's strong.
So I'm just gonna, look down. We've got his email here.
I think you could just read basically. Austin lays out the 3 points of why he thinks this deck showcases the power of Coiling Oracle, which was the sort of the prompt that we gave. And I think you'd be good to just read his 3 points here, because I think that he very neatly lays out.
Go ahead. Hit us with these 3.
All right, so the first is ramp. And to quote Austin, Acid Trip's game plan doesn't materialize until 5 mana. There you can lay down Mole Drifters or combine Skyfisher/Stalker with Reality Acid for a big effect. The faster you get there, the better, especially if you decide to use Reality Acid to attack the opponent's mana base or are staring down a Nivix Cyclops. ETB trigger. Coiling Oracle provides a solid kitty target for both Skyfisher and Dreamstalker, and occasionally Momentary Blink. The option to cantrip your bouncers for an extra UG is very nice, and allows you to deploy them early without missing out on value. Tiny body. Here, Coiling Oracle can do more than soak edicts or chump. He can pick up Rancor or Moldervine Cloak and start behaving like a proper creature. If the opponent punts removal at him, you're happy. If he can swing freely or trade, you're happy. Acid Trip's ground force traditionally is a bunch of 1Xs, so having a way to give these inert bodies some claws is a boon.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like this is a pretty good fit for this style of deck. The only real catch, as we mentioned last episode, is the fact that it is 2 different colors of mana, and so getting it down turn 2 sometimes just isn't in the cards for you. But it does seem pretty sweet. Like,
and I think cards like Abundant Growth really help here.
Yes.
Help. If you go turn 1 forest and then you only have another forest in your hand, and you fix for, you can fix for any color you need. So I think that card is very good here.
Yeah. Plus the draw and the fact that you can kitty that, like,
right.
There's a lot of little interactions here.
And as a whole, I know that Mike and I don't really think kitty decks are really that great, but it's always really interesting when you can sort of abuse these ETB style effects. I think really this is a whole other conversation. The problem with Jeskai Kitty, I think, is actually called Dotha Rebirth, but that's neither here nor there currently. But I do think that the Reality Acid, the blue-white Reality Acid stylists are the best iterations of the kitty deck. Because they have so much game against so many different things. Yeah,
that's the big thing. They don't have a lot of interaction for instants and sorceries, but they sacrifice that for being able to handle any type of permanent, really. Like, the only thing you can't hit with Reality Acid is a hexproof creature.
Right, and even...
And I mentioned it before. Like, you can go after their land base in that matchup.
And Austin, correct me if you've thought of this. Please let us know. I really think an Auramancer would be good in this deck, because it could get back any of these permanents that you might accidentally that might blow up or that you accidentally dredge, and is another relevant body to attack in with.
Yeah, I think that an Auramancer, maybe 2, could possibly fit into this list and shore up a couple of matchups. Because you're in this for the grind. This isn't a fast deck at the best of times. So, maybe just one more piece in there. But I really like this. I like that it's a fresh take on a deck that's been around for a while that actually benefits quite a lot for getting that 3rd color. Like, having Aura Arlet is just, like, that to me is one of the biggest parts of this. Just the ability to have a finisher, where this deck kind of relied on getting in with evasive 2/2s.
Yeah.
I don't know. I definitely dig this list. So let's talk about the financial thing real quick.
Yes.
Because we've started doing that, and I've definitely got emails from people saying they appreciate it. So online, this is going to run you $19.50, and in paper, $32.30.
And a lot of that, online at least, is the 2 Hydroblasts on the board, which are 8 tickets.
Yep.
The rest of this is super duper cheap.
Yeah. Most, and again, I think barring like Coiling Oracle, a lot of these cards see play in other decks. Now, your Reality Acids are kind of narrow. The Heliod's Pilgrim is a little narrow, although you're kind of buying into like half a Kitty deck and half of Boggles. So if you have both of those, there's a chance you might already have everything you need to make this deck. And if you don't, you can play around with those after you're done. So I don't know. I think this looks like a pretty solid investment in my mind.
Yeah, I would agree. And it runs some amount of the gain lands and bounce lands, which you'll need for any deck, which aren't really a financial investment because they printed them all like 4 times.
Yeah.
Really, it's the Hydro Blast, and I think standard bearers aren't exactly cheap online, but
all of those are relevant sideboard cards, right?
Yeah, the sideboard cards are almost all sideboard cards, and then like Acacian Javelineers goes into mono white. So yeah, I would say that you're buying a lot of little pieces for some other decks, but you are picking up some staples if you pick up this list wholesale.
Yeah, no, I don't think I could ever possibly define this as like a solidly bad or narrow investment in terms of building a collection.
Right.
But thank you so much, Austin. This was I'm not gonna lie. As soon as I saw the name of like a 3-color combination and a deck that I already think is a little shaky, I was like, I don't know how good this is gonna be, and it turned out to be really sweet. So thanks for showing us.
Maybe
we
got a little rebrew episode. We haven't done rebrew in so long. We need to.
Yeah,
we should do one of those.
I would totally be down to play this deck. It looks like it's got a lot of like decision trees.
Well, I know we're on the air right now, but Mike and I have been talking about making more video content, so we're gonna bookmark this one.
Definitely. So this week on the Maybe board, we're talking about a card that is objectively powerful, but really can't find a home. It's Blightning.
And before we really get into this card in depth, one of my very first pre-con Magic decks was the Rakdos Archenemy deck.
Oh, okay.
And I'm trying to remember what it was called. It was called like Undead Apocalypse or something.
Okay, yeah. So something that sounds like a cheesy 80s metal album.
Yeah, all of them were. Arch Enemy is actually an extremely fun format. But anyway, Blightning was in that deck, and I always thought this card was just like so crazy. My friends all hate it because it's like, you're going to deal 3 damage to me and make me discard 2 cards.
All right, so yeah, for those who are unfamiliar, 1, a black, a red, deal 3 damage to a player, not player or creature, and they discard 2 cards. So this is functionally a nerfed Hymn to Torok that had a baby with a nerfed Lightning Bolt, and they're all 1 card. So
it would cost as much as casting a Hymn and a Lightning Bolt.
Exactly. Like it's just the 2 of them kind of stapled together in worse forms. So this is an instant 2-for-1, right? Which seems good on its face, right? Because Pauper is very much a 1-for-1 format. Like the number of cards that kind of break that symmetry in terms of like aggressive options are pretty low. So on face value, it seems like Bolt you, Mind Rot you seems good, right?
For as much as a Mind Rot would cost, even.
Exactly. So, and we've got our notes here. This was nuts in, I believe it was Modern or maybe even Standard, where you had Bloodbraid Elf.
They were in the same set, block at least.
I think set. Block, yeah. Were they the same set?
I don't know a lot about Alara, honestly.
Yeah, I was I was not
before
playing.
I was playing,
yeah.
But they were at least in the same block.
Yeah. So I was joking. Blightning feels a lot better when it's an ETB effect on a 3/2 with haste. But that said, it's still a pretty strong effect. So why is this not more playable?
I think we talked about it before like in another episode, but Rakdos just isn't a very good color combination in Pauper. That being said, there is a Rakdos control deck that plays this card.
Yeah. So if you can play it, it seems sweet. The catch is, like, a lot of the cards I have like queued up and that we've already talked about for the Maybe board, it's just not got a good home. Like,
and something interesting Mike pointed out, and we take a little break between each of our segments, is that
you're breaking the magic.
Sorry,
you're pulling up the curtain.
I'm just saying we talk about each segment before we really get deep into it. But something you brought up that I thought was interesting is that almost all these cards are gold cards as well because the fixing in our format is so poor.
Yeah. So a lot of these gold cards do price you into being solidly in 2 colors.
Right. It's not like even in Modern, the mana bases are pretty much perfect. You can there are some decks that are 3 colors that are also actually 5 colors, right? Because they can splash like 1 Temple Garden in their Jund deck for white, or you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. And there definitely are decks in our format that play a lot of colors. There's that we mentioned earlier. There's a 5-color Boggles list, which, while it might not be perfect, does exist. Like, there is the ability to stretch our mana bases. Like, I don't know if you saw it. There was a Grixis Delver Thermo Alchemist list this week.
Okay, and yeah, sorry, go ahead. I have something I want to interject when you're done with that.
But that list was like strongly 3 colors, and it 5-0'd. So it is possible to do 3 color.
Well, it's and just Sig Trinket's a 3-color deck. So
yeah, like these decks do certainly exist, but I don't know. Like, red black just doesn't really have an identity outside of go fast aggro.
Was that list playing Blightning, the Grixis Delver list, just out of curiosity?
I don't believe they were. They were mostly playing cantrips to set up their Delvers, fill the bin, because they were also running, I believe, a full play set of Anglers.
Gotcha. Because I want part of the maybe board is that we try and brainstorm a home for the style of card. I don't think a Grixis. What about a Grixis creatureless control deck? So that's WinCon is like Curse of the Bloody Tome or something. I don't know.
Curse, I feel, runs counterproductive of including red, because red's big strength is getting direct burn.
Right, but I was thinking more like you could... Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking you could use the bolt, maybe like bolts and flame slashes for spot removal, but then why would you play Blightning? Because there's no need.
Yep.
You're not trying to do 3 damage to your opponent. Okay, I did touch a little bit on that Rakdos control list. Blightning, in our format at least, feels a lot more like a control card because you're dumbing them for 3, but then they also have to discard.
Yeah, and 2, on turn 3, if they've been curving out, might be a good chunk of their hand. It's probably half, if not all.
Yeah.
So, sure, there are some decks, again... Actually, you know what? I'm going to pivot for a second here.
Okay.
There are decks in our format where it's just bad against.
Affinity.
I mean, Affinity to some extent. I'm thinking a Tortured Existence list, unless they've got 2 cards in hand that are vital in that moment... don't really care.
This card might really be at its best versus other control decks.
Yeah. Because it kind of prices them into saying, can I take 3 and discard another card, or do I burn a counter?
It's also a sorcery, right? This card's not an instant.
Yes, it is a sorcery.
It'd be insane as an instant.
Yes, because then people would start doing stuff like playing it on your draw step.
Yeah, okay, never mind. Of course it's a sorcery. Sorry, everyone.
Almost all discard is sorcery speed, because it limits that shenanigan. Piracy
Command.
What?
Kolaghan's Command. But that's also a rare, so...
in our format, we have Funeral and Piracy Charm, which can discard on at instant speed, but,
2 cards at instant speed's a little much.
Yeah.
But so that Rakdos control deck, I don't know the list off the top of my head, but I want to say it has a little bit of a Metalcraft element, because I think its WinCon is Bleak Coven Vampires, but it also plays like Oubliette, Blightning, Lightning Bolt.
So what it kind of winds up looking like is a hybrid between a more controlling version of Burn and mono black. So you kind of you get access to stuff like Blightning, but you're still running a lot of it gives you. So mono black, one of its catches is it's got all this cheap edict based removal. It has very little good targeted removal.
Yeah, it's basically Victim of Night and Oubliette.
Yeah, so this gets you a little bit of reach there. A lot of the lists I've seen also will toss in a little bit of a Madness sub theme, because then you can run 4 Fiery Tempers as though you were running 4 extra Lightning Bolts. Then
Blightning yourself.
Blightning yourself to double bolt your opponent?
Yeah.
Actually, is Blightning target player, or is it target opponent?
I don't really know that. That's actually terrible, though. There's no reason for you to waste a card to double Fiery Temper your opponent. That's stupid.
Okay, you say that, but sometimes you wind up bolting your own creature when it's the right move.
That's
I don't know.
way different.
I don't know. There are all those
is-
like kind of weird situations.
But if your opponent is exactly at 6 life and you happen to have 5 mana open, then I guess so, because you could not cast both Fiery Timbers.
Blightning is target player.
Okay, you could target your. Okay, let's say there's some realm where that exact scenario is happening. Yes, you could target yourself.
Yeah. One of the interesting inclusions, I forget the name of it, but there's some there's some very aggressively priced black creature from somewhere in Time Spiral block that has discard a card. This gains shadow until end of turn, which was pretty spicy. It's like a 3/1 for 2. Like it's just
It's like Dothy Marauder, but worse.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is, one of the catches of the shadow creatures is they can't really block.
Right.
So this one kind of negates that effect and also enables your discard-based strategy.
My first. Sorry, I'm pivoting too.
Yeah.
I just want to. For all of those interested in my history, my first deck that I built myself, I inherited a collection from my friend, and I was looking through all the cards, and I was like, these Dothy dudes are unblockable. Oh, that seems good. And I was like, this hatred card lets me pay life to add power to my creatures. This seems real good. So my first deck ever was like a mono black beat down, like hatred Dothy deck.
I'm gonna really date myself here. Do you know Phyrexian Negator?
Yeah, dude, that card's sick.
No. It's not Obliterator.
No, I know what Phyrexian Negator is. They exist to cease.
Yeah,
that's the flavor text. That card's awesome.
It was a 5/5 for 3, so it meant you could Dark Ritual into it. And there was a period where a large part of the meta was get Negator online as soon as possible, and then hatred for lethal.
Yeah,
so
dude.
Fond memories there.
Yeah, but they exist to cease.
But like, I don't know. My big thing with Rakdos is you really price, like, I think it gets better now that we've got Night's Whisper as a draw spell.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because before, one of the issues was you either played the red like loot spells like Faithless Looting, or worse options like Tormenting Voice and stuff like that, but you never really had any like super solid draw effects. And the other option was pricing yourself into double black spells that might then draw you a pile of red stuff that you couldn't cast. So it was definitely one where the mana base was hurting it, just by nature of, you're either slowing yourself down with duels, you're casting everything on time with basics, and then not being able to cast half your deck, potentially. So I think Night's Whisper probably gives that deck a little bit more reach, because it does let you actually draw 2 on turn 2 and still be able to cast a red or black spell next turn.
Well, and also I think those decks play some amount of Prophetic Prisms now also, if they're the Metalcraft version.
If you've got like the Bleak Coven as a win con, sure. Yeah, you definitely want to be playing Prophetic Prisms because it'll fix your mana, it draws you a card, all the good things Prophetic Prism does. So Blightning kind of stuck until there's like, I don't know, like what breaks this? Is it just some super aggressive like black-red beater?
No, it's got to be better fixing.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
Like if Aether Hub had been a common, maybe you could have played Blightning.
Which actually kind of sequels us nicely into our next topic.
Yes, I'm a master of the segue.
We're returning to Kaladesh because we talked about it a little last week. We had some preliminary spoilers, and we've gotten a little bit more.
Now we have 2 complete cycles to talk about.
We do. So last week, we're going to start with the puzzle knots. And last week we talked about...
the only one that was spoiled at the time was the green one, Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot.
Yes.
Which honestly still seems like it might be one of the better ones.
Yeah. So as a reminder, Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot is a artifact for 2 generic. When it enters the battlefield, you gain 3 life and get 3 energy counters. Then for 2 and a green, you can gain 3 life and get 3 energy counters and sacrifice it.
So something to note, all of these have ETB effects, so they could potentially go into kitty-style decks.
Yep.
Because the Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, you just keep gaining life and keep gaining energy, assuming there's some way to spend that energy. And then the other ones, I'll do something else too.
Yeah. So let's go through them in good old Wooburg order. White has Cogworker's Puzzle Knot, 2 generic. When it enters the battlefield, you create a 1/1 colorless servo artifact creature token. Also using our new wording of create for tokens. And then for 1 and white, you can sack it and get another 1/1 colorless servo.
And this one actually, I think, could see a home in Affinity or Cyberworks. Not really 100%. It would have to replace either Prophetic Prism or Ichor Wellspring. I think Ichor Wellspring is kind of a bad card, so I wouldn't mind subbing this one in. But I already just play a more threat-heavy version of Affinity, so I don't know what I would cut for this yet.
Yeah, I mean, the important thing is it gets 2 towards your artifact count.
Yeah, which is... And it creates a dude for drum.
Yeah.
On turn 2. So on turn 2, you could turn 1 drum, turn 2 this. Now you suddenly have Metalcraft. You can play your Frogmites for free, or you can use the drum to tap the servo for a mana.
Actually, you hadn't gone through that whole line of play for me, and it sounds much better now that I'm hearing it.
Oh, okay.
The main home I had seen for this, is kind of the perennial rogue white aggro deck Cyborgs, which really wants to hit Metalcraft ASAP.
Right.
And this does a decent job of that. The blue one, Glassblower's Puzzle Knot, which has some pretty gorgeous art on it. 2 generic. When it enters the battlefield, you scry 2 and then get 2 energy. And then for 2 and a blue, you sacrifice and get the same effect again.
It seems okay. I just think that there are cards that do this better.
This is really unexciting for me.
Yeah.
If it was even just scry 1, draw 1, I'd feel much, much better about this. Although then you're actually, no, that's too good. Then you're just making better versions of existing stuff. Metal Spinner's Puzzle Knot is another one that I think could see some play. It's this gorgeous kind of like a Mobius strip art with what look like
dragons,
snakes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a pair of snakes or three snakes eating each other.
It's like a triple Ouroboros.
Yeah. So again, 2 generic. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, you lose a life. 2 and a black, sack it, draw a card, lose 1 life. So this might have a home in the kitty decks. A lot of them are already running Prophetic Prism to help with fixing, so they could get use out of that sacrifice. And I look at this and I see those situations where you have an Ichor Wellspring and no way to sacrifice it. This one has that just stapled onto it. So
yeah, and I think that this could just totally supplant Ichor Wellspring. The 1 life loss, I guess 2 life loss isn't super. It is relevant, is what I'm trying to say. But Ichor Wellspring for me has always just been kind of an unexciting card. I don't even run it in my affinity list anymore.
I think also for the Mardu Kitty variant, which again runs Bleak Coven Vampires and stuff like that.
Sweet little deck.
I think for that deck, this looks more appealing because that deck doesn't have a whole ton of ways to sack artifacts in most of the versions I've seen, because you don't get access to Perilous Research, for example.
Also, Kuldotha Rebirth, as I've said, I have strong feelings about. So
yeah, but this is just good on its own. You can just bounce it, play it out again. The life loss is a factor, but it is only 1 at a time. Yeah. You're still getting the usual going rate we've seen for black draw spells of 1 card and 1 life. The red one, I think we can say, is the most disappointing.
Yeah, the red one is terrible, basically.
2 generic, enters the battlefield, deals 1 damage to a creature or player, 2 and a red to repeat that. This is actually, now that I see it again, this is the worst version of Firebolt I have ever seen. This is actually just a miserable version of Firebolt.
Yeah, that one is definitely the worst one. Definitely, Rita.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, no, I'm planting my flag right now. This, if any of these see play, it is not going to be the red one. Yeah, this just unappealing.
Wow, Mike, tell me how you really feel.
I don't know. The rest of them, they're kind of all oh, well, maybe if we get a good payoff for energy for the green one, or the blue one's at least fixing your draws and getting you energy. The black one seems good. The red one is just, this is miserable.
People will, of course, play it in limited because it's going to be good. It depends on the X ones. It kills 2 servos, which might not be irrelevant.
Oh, yeah.
So.
For limited, I think it's a completely different game. I think in limited, you probably take most of these because they at least do something when they come down. And if there's decent fixing in your pool, I think you play as many of these as you can and just go nuts, right?
Right.
So that's the Puzzle Knot cycle, and these gave me hope. I am a little disappointed that they're all too generic. It means I can't Trinket Mage any of them.
Well, You know, if the white one cost 1, then it'd be insane.
Yeah.
So
they'd have to fidget with them to get them down to 1 generic. And I am kind of hoping that we get some sort of Trinket Mage variant, preferably at common. Like, I'd love to see, like, because we've got Trinket Mage and we've got Treasure Mage.
Treasure Mage is an uncommon only, right?
It is an uncommon only. And that's probably indicative that if we get a Trinket Mage variant, it'll be uncommon. I would also settle for a Trinket Mage with Kaladesh themed artwork. I think that'd be cool.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
But that said, all of these seem to be, barring the red one, kind of considerations for decks, and I like that. Obviously, the more playable cards we have in the format, the more diversity we can get, and the more options you have as a brewer or just someone who's tuning a tier 1 list.
And that's one of the luxuries of playing in Pauper is there's going to be commons in every set.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be all of them in every set, but like with the commons, you have so many more chances of finding a playable.
Yeah. And also, again, we're in an artifact block, and what is WotC's history with artifact blocks? Generally making completely broken things.
Well, Urza's was actually an enchantment block, Mike.
I know.
People forget that sometimes.
I know. I'm talking about Mirrodin and Mirrodin.
No, I know. But I'm just saying people remember Urza's for the artifacts, not the enchantments.
Yes. Which is probably a sign they did a bad job making it an enchantment block.
Well, I mean... yeah.
But, okay, let's move on to one that's not in a cycle that I just kind of tossed in here. Fortuitous Find, which is actually a reprint that's color shifted, and I am totally blanking on the original. The original has Elspeth in the art, and the original, the only change is that it's white. So Fortuitous Find, 2 and a black, sorcery, choose one or both, which I've seen on several cards so far, and am loving.
Yeah, more options is good.
Well, being able to take both is just so good. Like saying, like, you can cast this in a pinch for only one option, but you could get both. So Fortuitous Find has choose one or both, return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand, return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand.
I think this is playable. I don't know what you would play it in yet, because I don't think it goes into Affinity.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, maybe. I don't know. I don't think so.
I mean...
Well, it could, because then you could return a Carapace Forger and a Mirror Enforcer, or a Mirror Enforcer and a Frogmite.
I was going to say, you can just return 2 Mirror Enforcers.
Yeah, so maybe not terrible, but I like Sanctum Gargoyle a little better.
Can you remind me about the text on Sanctum Gargoyle? I know it's recursion.
Actually, Sanctum Gargoyle costs 4, but it's a 2/3 flyer, and you can return an artifact from your graveyard to your hand.
Okay, but
this is also still fairly playable.
I mean, the other one is white, which, white's interaction with artifacts is a little different. And the
white... You just said this was a color-shifted version of a white spell, Mike.
No. I'm saying, like, in terms of, like, a deck.
Okay,
I
see what you mean, yeah.
Like a black deck that has an artifact theme behaves very differently than a white deck with an artifact theme. And it's interesting because I feel like this fits for both colors. Like, I feel like it's color pie consistent. Mm-hmm. Because white renews things, black brings things back from the dead, and... It's kind of weird. I don't know. This one...
It on the surface, it seems like a very interesting card and that it could be playable. Not sure what archetype it might fit in yet.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just one that caught my eye as being interesting, and I like the fact that it's a choose one or both, and I'm really hoping that this is a cycle. Because if we get 4 more cards at common that all say choose one or both, there's going to be one that's busted. Like,
the blue one.
I just feel it. Like... It's going to be 4 of them that are passable.
We already have 2 cycles, though. Do you think Wizards would really print a 3rd common cycle? Like, how many common cycles do we normally get?
I can't give you that number off the top of my head, but usually we get pretty solid amounts of common cycles. Speaking of, let's talk about the thriving creatures.
So this is a really interesting mechanic. It's definitely a place to dump energy that you've created. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure how I feel about the creatures by themselves, though. It feels like they're worse, and then you upgrade them into something they should have been anyway.
So this is one of those kind of like weird asymmetric cycles where they all share something in common, and that is namely the text, when this enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy counters, and whenever this creature attacks, you may pay 2 energy. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Now, please note, you can only do that once every attack, so you can't just dump all your energy into one of these. So they grow slowly, and they're all different bodies. So, for example, the white one, Thriving Ibex, is 3 and a white for a 2/4. So when you look at these, do we just think of these as having a +1/+1 counter next turn?
Well, because you can spend the energy somewhere else is the other thing,
Yes,
right?
you can.
I guess, but even so, a 3/5/4 drop is not exciting.
No.
So
All
like,
right. So let me hit you with a blue one. Thriving Turtle. Same text. It's an 0/3 for 1 blue.
Now, this one I could see seeing play because it's a 1-drop and you can ninjutsu it.
Yeah, get a little bit more energy going.
But at that point, I don't know if it's better to just use it on your Fairy Miscreant, which will draw you a card later potentially anyway.
Yeah. So I think blue was generally received best out of this cycle. But let's continue on. So black for 1 and a black gets a 1/2 with these abilities. Red for 1 and a red gets a 2/1.
Meh.
And green for 2 and a green gets a 2/3.
Meh.
So, yeah, they all seem kind of marginal, and I'm really hoping that these aren't indicative of the sort of energy sinks that we're going to see for this set.
At least at common.
Obviously, we've seen some mythics and rares that have super, super good uses for energy.
Right.
And as it should be. But, Mark Rosewater said many times, your theme's not a theme unless it's at common. So we're going to get, some support. And I hope it's better than things that can get a +1/+1 counter each turn.
Right. It's just like if you have to spend an attack step and another resource to make your creature still not as good as other creatures you could potentially play, the card is not playable. Thriving Turtle is only interesting because it goes into a deck with a card with another ability and it's a 1-drop 0/3, which is not irrelevant in an aggro combo format, I guess.
I am also going to point out only one of these passes the bolt test. None of them have haste, so none of them get bigger until they survive your opponent's turn.
Right.
And even then, Thriving Ibex gets eaten up by a Flame Slash. So a lot of these, they seem a little low impact, but they do also seem interesting.
It's an interesting mechanic for sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm feeling like right now, obviously we haven't seen any great energy sinks at common. Do you want to talk about Aether Hub?
Yeah, we can talk. Well, because we've also mentioned about doing a little bit on every episode about an uncommon. What if it was a common? Aether Hub is very, very much a good card to take into that direction.
All right, so Aether Hub is kind of a strictly better version of this old card called Tendo Icebridge.
I would say it just is, isn't it? You can't proliferate. So with Tendo Icebridge, you could proliferate all the Tendo Icebridges if you had counters on them. With this, you can only proliferate one energy counter. So I guess
I feel like in a large number of cases, though, it's going to be the better card. So Tendo Icebridge was a land that came into play with 1 charge counter on it, and then you could tap it for colorless, or you could tap it and remove a charge counter and produce a mana of any color. This one does the same thing, but it uses energy. So if you're willing to devote extra cards into, creating additional energy, this can just be a City of Brass sans downside. So the reason I feel like this could be a common, if you don't devote any extra space for other energy effects, it's not dreadfully better than Crumbling Vestige.
Right. Because Crumbling Vestige, even though it enters tap, you still get the mana right away.
Yes.
So this functions very similarly.
So with this one, you can save it. So maybe there's a 5-color control deck out there that wants it or something like that, where you kind of want to hang on to that mana.
Also, Karoo lands will be really good with it.
Yeah, they would. The Karoos also interact beneficially with Crumbling Vestige.
Right.
So I feel like it's probably too good for Pauper, but I also feel like there's an ongoing discussion of like, how could we get better fixing that doesn't completely ruin the format?
This is actually, I think this is pretty good. It's unfetchable.
It's unfetchable. Yep. So you got to draw into it naturally.
Yeah. It's not easily abusable. Well, I don't know. I guess with Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot it might be. But yeah, like you said, you have to devote all these extra slots basically to making sure you have an energy flow.
Exactly. Like it's only...
And by the time you can start looping Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, mana fixing might not really be your concern.
Yeah. It's going to take a lot of work to make that just a permanent 5-color land. Now, it does ETB untapped. So, if it ETB's tapped... It's just worse than a duel in most situations.
Well, and if it entered tapped, we already have those. We have the Vivid cycle from Lorwyn.
Vivids are uncommons.
Oh, oops.
Yep.
I knew there was a reason people weren't playing those.
Also, in a lot of cases, like, again, it's kind of more like once you're getting into, like, 3-color and stuff like that. So another one that I see pointed out a decent amount online is Tarnished Citadel from Planeshift, I believe.
What does that do?
Tarnished Citadel, it taps for colorless, and then it also has the ability tap, pay 3 life, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool.
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
No.
Even in like the most aggro of aggro decks where you really need to curve out.
If you're an aggro of aggro decks, then why aren't you mono red? You know what I mean?
I mean, I can see where you're coming from. Maybe you want to run
Blightning.
Well, not Blightning, but like Rancors out on time.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
there's a reason people don't play this card.
I see where you're coming from with this. Well, it's also a rare.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So this would be like a downshift from rare to common. So in terms of like super fast aggro decks, sure, it might hit you for 6 or 9 life, but if you finish the game before they can hit you for the other 11, you don't really care.
I just don't think that equivalency is very good. 3 life for 1 mana.
Yeah, well, it still taps for colorless, so
right. Gotcha.
It's slightly better than City of Brass in that respect, but I don't know. Like it is that very, very difficult to balance thing. Like Aether Hub is probably a little too good for Pauper. But we can dream. It's okay to have dreams, kids.
No. Yeah, it's okay to have dreams, I guess.
But Kaladesh, I'm pretty hyped.
This actually looks like one of the best sets we've had in a while, and I don't know if SOI was really that underwhelming of a block.
Well, I mean, let me hit you with this. This is the first block that did not start life as a part of a 3-set block, because they confirmed that Shadows over Innistrad was originally going to be, it was pulled heavily from the 3rd set of Battle for Zendikar.
Well, and also Innistrad was a plane that was originally a 3-set block.
Yes. So, for example, Khans of Tarkir as a block was really solid. Like, it was good for limited.
Yeah.
It was arguably bad for standard, but that was
fine.
Actually, no, it was fine, because it wasn't until we got to BFZ and got fetchable duels where the mana bases got stupid.
Fetchable duels are fine. People are just...
Yeah, people went full greed mode.
Yeah, people are just KB Debbies. That's kitty baby whiners for all of you who don't know.
But BFZ came along, and what have we been playing out of that block? Pulse of Marasa?
Oh, for Pauper?
Yeah, Blister Pod?
I'm sure there's more. I just, I'm bad at thinking.
I'm willing to sit here. If you can...
Crumbling Vestige?
Okay.
Dude, I don't know. BFZ was super broken at rare because of the Eldrazi, though. So
yes, it was just... My point here is it never felt really well designed.
No.
And Mark Rosewater himself has said it's their worst design mistake. And he said, I forget if he said his career or the past decade, but either way.
Probably since Mirrodin.
Yeah. Well, I think someone asked him, like, just what was the worst mistake you've made? And I just forget how he clarified it, but the answer was Battle for Zendikar as a block. And Shadows was better, but it still kind of felt a little awkward. And I think one of the big things was the keywords. The fact that, oh my God, 10 keywords over 2 sets is too much. Like, there's just like no way that you can, like, we got 2 emerge cards. Out of the entire set, there were like, I want to say like 6 or 7 emerge cards. And that was a sweet mechanic. Whereas with Kaladesh, we've got 3 mechanics so far. We've got Crew, we've got Energy, and we've got Fabricate. So I think just the ability to get a bigger density of keywords means that as long as the keywords are good, you're going to have a good time. Also, it means you can have more synergy. Like if they had 10 mechanics in this set, in this block, I would already be complaining about Energy. I would already be complaining that there wouldn't be enough support for it. So I feel positive about Kaladesh because it doesn't look like the past 2 blocks at all.
Yeah, I actually kind of quit playing Limited after BFC came out.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair,
Triple Cons was my jam.
Triple Cons, A+ format. Not like it's not like a Rise of the Eldrazi or like a Triple Innistrad, but it's definitely like top 25% of draft formats. Like easily top quarter. So yeah. I don't know. I'm pumped. We're probably doing a pre-release together.
Oh yeah, we need to sign up for that.
We're going to do Two-Headed Giant. It's going to be us. So if you are in the Austin area, please let us play this pre-release. Please don't annoy us.
What? You could annoy us? God, Mike hating the fans.
That is
Adrian's the approachable one. Remember that, everyone.
All I'm saying is I'm just tired of our friends feigning surprise every time we walk into the room. I'm tired.
That's only one of them.
No, it's 2 of them.
Oh.
I'm not naming names. You know who you are. I know you're listening.
I like it. Continue to do it to me.
All right. Well, we're pulling up on the hour mark here.
Sounds good.
So I'm going to just kind of wrap up this episode. Nice little bow on it. And we can move on with our days. Thanks to Pat's Games for giving us a place to play Weekly Popper. Thanks to L for the use of his song Quantitative as our theme music. His music can be found on SoundCloud under the name LLL. Remember to subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. We are also on iTunes, and if you subscribe there, please leave an iTunes review. It really helps us out. People have been doing this a bunch, and I am super thankful. If you have an idea for a discussion topic or a deck list you want us to discuss, maybe something with Blightning in it.
Yeah.
You can either use the contact form on our website or email us directly at colorcommentary@gmail.com. I'm Michael Petchek.
And I'm Adrian Gonzalez.
Signing off for Color Commentary.